So I thought I would do something really fun for the podcast this week, which was to record it live with listeners. So I have some listeners in the studio with me, and at the end we're going to do some Q&A, which may or may not be shared on the live podcast. But just wanted to let you know that if you are a listener of Entrepreneur School, sometimes we do fun things like this, and in order to find out about those, you need to be on my email list. So if you head to ksco.ca, you will find a variety of different ways you can get on the email list. I have free visibility tools that you can access, and then you will get in the know on all the fun things that are happening. So before we dive into today's episode, which is all about my visibility layering technique and how you can take the overwhelm out of visibility and build on what you are doing one layer at a time, I have to tell you a story about cake. So let's talk about cake. It was my oldest daughter's fourth birthday. And first of all, a little PSA for all the parents out there. Don't look at Pinterest before a kid's birthday party. It is designed to just make you feel bad because if you don't have the perfect themed birthday and the matching crafts and the goodie bags and all the things, you just feel like you are a terrible parent. At least that's how I feel. And so I now have a rule that there's no Pinterest for birthday parties. Also, children's birthday parties are not my favorite things. So I've just learned what works for me, right? And that's really part of the observation too. And it totally relates to how you do visibility. But in this moment, I thought I was going to make my daughter a cake, and she had requested a strawberry Moana cake. And I was like, what is a strawberry Moana cake? I don't know what that is. So I talked to a friend, and she suggested, well, maybe you just make an angel food cake, slap on some Cool Whip and some strawberries and stick a Moana in it and call it a day. And I was like, yes, that sounds totally doable. Fast forward to 11 p.m. the night before the birthday, and I have this oversized, completely inedible donut on my hands. If you've never made angel food cake, don't try. It's not a beginner cake for sure. So I essentially threw it out. And the next morning, I went to the grocery store and I bought a big slab cake pre-made, a container of strawberries, and I stuck a Moana on a popsicle stick, put it in that cake, and my daughter was thrilled. She literally talked about this cake for years. It was her favorite cake. And here I had tried so hard to complicate it. And the way that this pulls back into visibility is that you really need to simplify things, right? And that's what worked, simplifying it. Sometimes this is how visibility feels. You think you need all of the pieces to be perfect from the start, your content, your message, like a ready moment. But often it's really just about starting where you are and building those small intentional layers over time. I want to share a couple more examples of how I have grown visibility in layers and the way that this has played out for my business, just to show you and for context, right? Visibility is something I constantly hear everyone saying, I need more, I need to figure that out. But also it feels intimidating and it has to be flashy and in front of everybody and way out there. And so maybe it feels too big to get started. But the reality is it does take time to build all of this up. And so this is not a tomorrow you're going to go and pitch the biggest podcast you think you can get on or the biggest stage you think you can get on and start there. No, we can't do that. So where I started, and when I talk about my visibility kind of journey, I think back to summer 2023 when my kids were home from school and I didn't have them in a bunch of camps. So I knew they were going to be, around a lot. And so I was going to have to be really intentional about the visibility that I was taking so that I could continue to make progress, build momentum, and have a September where my business didn't feel like it had been ignored for the whole summer. Because, side note, what you do now, the results happen in the next 2 to 3 months, ultimately. That's where you are looking at in terms of building this up. So for me, that looked like doing a PR pitch about my podcast, this show that you're listening to, It was only a little baby, was 6 months old. It had a couple thousand downloads, 30 episodes or something like that. And so not really big. And I could tell myself all those things like, oh, this isn't a big deal. This isn't like hitting all of these numbers that big podcasts do. So therefore it's like not newsworthy. I shouldn't bother talking about it. But I got out of my own way and I did. And that pitch led to radio coverage, online articles, print paper coverage. Yes, there's still print paper here. I was even on the front page. And that led to big guests being on my show and like growing this platform, which then led to me being able to take that as a case study and pitch myself to speak at an event, which I did last spring in Nashville. So that was a big step, but that wasn't the first step. And that's really the point, is that visibility, it grows over time. It's like ripples, or as I'm going to go into this analogy of like building a cake. So if visibility feels overwhelming or like something that you're waiting to be ready for, don't worry. You don't have to do it all at once. You don't need everything to be perfect to get started. And so that's why I'm going to share this visibility layering technique, because it's about building a strong foundation and then adding layers as you go and letting your visibility grow in a sustainable way. So the first layer of the cake is called the foundation, right? We're not going to try and be too fancy. Foundation layer, setting up your visibility assets. Like as in a cake, if you don't have something there, it's not going to work. This is the foundation that holds everything up. It needs to be solid. It needs to be balanced and ready to support the other layers. So what does this include? It includes clarifying your message, understanding who you are, what you stand for, why people care. And this is all the brand work, which is work that I always do with clients no matter what, because the reality is when you start thinking about putting yourself out there, you then realize there's other questions to answer. Like, who am I? What is my message? What am I all about? Who is my audience? And how do I then choose visibility opportunities that are going to align with that audience? How do I know what to say when I get on podcasts or when I'm pitching for media or when I even go to a networking event and introduce myself? How do I answer that question? Right? That is all part of the foundation. And it is important to get that clarity because likely that's actually what's probably keeping you from leaning into visibility even more. And part of this can also be creating some of those initial assets like website, landing page, bio, setting up social media profiles. Like even if you're not heavily relying on social media, which if you've been here for a hot minute, you know, that's not what I recommend, but I do still think it's important to have an online presence. And that's where people can come and connect with you. So essentially, you get all of the pieces in place that when you go out and do quote visibility, the things it's pointing back to are set up and they're there and they're consistent and cohesive for you. So we make sure that all of these assets are clearly communicating your value and you're ready for people to start noticing you. So building all that out, right, is a really important exercise too, because the clarity that you get from going through that process helps you to build more confidence and be more sure about where you want to start focusing your efforts when it comes to visibility. So the second layer then is connection. And that's all about building relationships and awareness. So we got filling now, right? So, you know, I'm going to share that actually my mom's favorite cake was Black Forest cake. So it's a chocolate cake. And then there's a layer of like cherry, like, yeah, sugary cherries, basically, and whipped cream. And then another layer of chocolate. And then on the outside, you've got cream and you've got sometimes sprinkles and sometimes chocolate flakes and more cherries. Delicious. So anyways, the connection layer is that cherry layer in the middle. And that's what's bringing the flavor and the connection to all the layers and holding together different parts of the cake, right? So when it comes to visibility, your connection layer is really networking, forming connections with key people in your industry, potential peers, affiliate partners, collaborators, reaching out and making those connections, maybe finding partnerships, maybe finding ways that you can just start those relationships with people to help reach more of your ideal audience. Because this is where you can build a warm audience that knows and likes and trusts you. So visibility really starts with people. It's about building relationship that's eventually going to turn into opportunities. You don't need to be on that big stage yet. You're just starting with one-on-one connections. You're going from there. This is a lot of what I do, especially what can be done in under 10 minutes, right? Like reaching out to somebody, and you probably already have this person on your list. It's probably been something you have been moving for days or weeks or months on your to-do list. Like, oh, I just need to send an email to X person. Like, I gotta call Stacy. Like, Stacy has been on my list and I just keep not emailing Stacy. And I know that once I email Stacy, we're going to create something together. We're going to do something together. It's going to lead to something, right? And these little reach outs, this is how you maintain relationships with people. If you went to a networking event and you came home with a stack of business cards, you need to connect with those people, right? You need to follow up, build an actual relationship. It doesn't count that you went to the event, you came home, and now you don't have like new business friends. You need these business friends. This is truly so much more than just about like connections that you're making, but this is how you build a business. You create these connections, opportunities, ways of like not feeling alone, but just building that trust, that mutual trust from other people's audiences as well. So then when we move on to that amplification layer, which is the third layer, this is when we're starting to think about those strategic platforms for visibility and other people's audiences. So for your cake, we're now getting a little fancier. Maybe you've actually baked a couple cakes before, and now you're ready to start like doing a double layered cake. As I mentioned, I will not be making any more cakes, and that's fine. But this is a tasty analogy, and I wanted to go with it. So the second layer, this is the height, this is the substance. This makes the cake stand out. It creates more impact, a more like contrasting, delicious experience to eat it. So when it comes to the visibility, your amplification layer is guest speaking opportunities, getting on podcasts, being interviewed, media features. Maybe you're contributing content to other platforms. You're collaborating with larger audiences. You're finding people who have, bigger things going on that you can start being part of, that you can step up into. So this should feel like more of a stretch. This should feel like not what you're doing on day one, but like, your 60 to 90 day longer term goal for what kind of visibility you want to achieve. Maybe you're a writer, you like to write things out. So you could be guest blogging or writing articles, contributing to publications that take in guest writers, those kinds of things. But essentially, this is a phase where you can focus on collaborations that amplify your visibility. So again, podcasts, joint ventures, guest blogs, cross promotions, just working with other people and reaching their audiences. Right away, when you think about connecting with other people's audiences, you need to know that that means you have an automatic trust that is passed on to you. So when people have already like gathered the people that you want to reach, they've built relationships and they're just saying, hey, have you met my friend, fill in the blank? And as soon as fill in the blank comes in, let's say Janelle. Have you met Janelle? Well, Janelle now has more credibility right away just because I introduced her to you, because you already trust me, right? And so that is a magical, not to be overlooked and not to be taken for granted part of growing your visibility through other people. And that's why creating those relationships and those like collaborations and connections is so important. And why obviously you have to do that first. You don't get to skip to using somebody else's audience. Like I get pitched multiple times a day with guests for this show. And I rarely accept those cold pitches, not just because, quite honestly, a lot of them are really terribly written and they're not customized to my audience. It's because I don't know the person. And I have plenty of people that I want to bring onto the show who I do know and trust and know can add value to you and that I want to share with you, and that we can also like do something collaboratively together as well. So that's a really important thing to consider, is that like you don't really get to just skip to the front of the line, right? So which I'm putting out there as a way of saying, it's a good thing that you start small and you grow your way up, right? It's not just that's the only way to do it, really. So when we get to the final layer of your cake, this is the icing. This is the momentum layer where you're starting to build consistency, where you're creating follow-up and ongoing visibility. Icing, it makes the cake look polished. It gets people's attention. It's like the delicious extra pieces, maybe on a fancy cake. They're getting like all the fondant and it looks like whatever they make it look like. But essentially, from your visibility perspective, like momentum is when you step into thought leadership. You're starting to show up as an expert. You're on larger platforms. Maybe you're speaking at events or getting featured in media. It's that top layer, the visual appeal that gets you noticed and invites people to engage with you on a different level, on a deeper level. And this is important. Like you're creating a system now for staying top of mind as well. So your momentum is also the place where you get to move from maybe just being pitching and like reaching out and doing all of that legwork to starting to receive invitations as well. There's an amazing shift that happens once you've been putting yourself out there for long enough and you've started making those connections. You're going to start getting invitations. Things are going to start happening for you. It's going to become easier. It's not intimidating. It's just who you are now. You just are a person who gets visible, who focuses on that. And it doesn't feel like it takes up all of your time. It doesn't feel like you are always hustling for visibility. It's just coming with ease. You're regularly connecting, following up on collaborations, keeping those visibility efforts going, not letting the opportunities go cold, right? And you're building habits. This is one thing that's so important, building habits around showing up consistently, even when you don't want to, even if you're sick. You can do what you can do, right? And it keeps that momentum building over time. And this is truly like the magic piece that I love when I see the results from this. And like when it comes to how this actually plays out, what we know about habit building from books like Atomic Habits and all of the research that has been done about how to get yourself to like start doing something different that you're not currently doing. So, like visibility, if you're not currently focused on visibility, how do you build a habit around it? Well, first of all, it's by taking it one step at a time, doing this layering approach, and also committing to it for a longer period of time, for 60 to 90 days. And that's why I always recommend the 90-day window. It helps you to really create amazing results. That's why that's the length of my program as well, Brand Visibility Accelerator. So once you start doing it and you get consistent at it, you let it grow over time, you're going to have this amazing cake. It's going to feel easier. It's going to be something that you do without hesitation at the top of your list on a daily basis in less than 10 minutes a day, truly. Like the beauty of this visibility layering technique is it's not about diving headfirst or feeling like you need to be everywhere at once either, right? It's about building that visibility over time, just like the layers of this cake. And each step sets a strong foundation. It allows you to grow your momentum without the pressure of needing to have everything figured out from day one, right? And I get it because so many entrepreneurs hold back on visibility because they don't feel ready, or it seems too overwhelming, or you like need all of these pieces in place before you get started. But I hope that you can see that with this technique, you don't have to wait till you're 100% ready, because part of the process is creating that foundation and creating that clarity and your plan, right? Getting started is what builds your readiness and your confidence. When you start small, you build consistency, and before you know it, those layers are stacking up and your visibility is working for you. You don't have to figure it out all on your own. And that is why I created the Brand Visibility Accelerator. I've been talking about it on the podcast. I've been sharing about it in my emails. And I'm just going to share one more little summary of what this program is, because we're taking this visibility technique and applying it directly to your business. So you get a personalized strategy that you follow step by step No more second guessing, no more trying to do everything at once. With my personal support to build a tailored plan that grows your presence in a way that feels sustainable and fits your strengths, right? Like the whole conversation we've been having is about how I no longer make cake. And that is also a metaphor for like not doing the things that you don't want to do when it comes to visibility. You still have to find ways that are going to work, that are going to actually get you the results that you want, but also fit with your strengths. And usually that's the space where we talk about how it doesn't have to be social media. This is not about posting more or showing your face more online. It's about building relationships and doing what is going to work for your specific business. So I know that visibility can feel intimidating, but part of the way that this is built in BVA is that you have 90 days of support and guidance to make it happen. And even more, I am giving you absolutely everything that I use to grow my visibility, the tools, the templates, the systems, and even access to my network, my platforms, and my audience to help you amplify your message. So I don't know about you, but I am tired of programs that make you figure everything out on your own. And that's why I wanted this to be a really supportive container with a small and dedicated group of entrepreneurs working alongside you, plus live calls with me to guide you through every step of your visibility layers. So there are still a few more founding member spots available, which are at a very special rate. And once those are filled, the price is going to go up. So if you feel like you're ready to stop waiting and start building your visibility foundations now before you feel ready, then this is your chance. Let's make your visibility simple, layered, and totally aligned with who you are and where you're going. You can get to the program application by going to ksco.ca/BVA and apply for your spot. We'll have a conversation, make sure it's a good fit for you. And I can't wait to help you build your visibility with confidence and momentum.